Good morning, Brownsville. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this feed. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Frank Olivo. Our program focuses on the very important issues that are affecting our local community. We have shed light on injustices, and we've allowed for our platform, this mic, to be that of the voice of the people. Now, if this is something you can see yourself supporting, well, we ask that you join the cause. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Currently, right now, this live program is being streamed on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Facebook. It could be found under Frankie Olivo. But more importantly, if you haven't already, create a Gmail account, go to YouTube, like, follow, and subscribe to our channel titled Frankie Olivo TV. As of late, our Facebook page is at risk of being taken down. That is the reason why we ask you to follow all of our social media platforms. The powers that be do not want you, the voter, to know the truth. But remember, we will not be silenced. So if you're really about the cause and you want to stand up to corruption and you want to hold our elected leaders and those in leadership positions accountable, well, you know what to do. Support the cause. Make sure that you subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Remember, Good Morning Brownsville will come on Monday through Friday religiously. So make sure that you are following us. We will not be silenced. And always remember, Brownsville, we are forever grateful to each and every one of you for the time and attention that you provide us. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have with us Miss Lorraine de Leon, Cameron County Republican Party Chair candidate with us.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Cameron County. Good morning, Frankie. Thank you for having me on your show today. I love your show, and so I know that Harlingen, it gets really excited when you go live. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that.
Anytime. And how has this campaign been treating you so far? Again, we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of early voting. Ms. De Leon, how has your campaign been?
Well, it's been boots on the ground, but I want to talk a little bit about why I'm running for Cameron County GOP chair this morning. And so I'm just here to let all the constituents know that the reason that I am running for Cameron County GOP chair is because I want to grow the party. I want to be able to do that. You know, we are about faith, family, and hard work here in the Valley in South Texas. And so this is really, really important for me. And, you know, I believe that we need new leadership. Frankie, we need to really work. I think we're doing good, but we can do so much better. And I'd like to just share with everybody a little bit about myself. And so, once again, my name is Lorraine de Leon. I was raised in San Benito, moved to Harlingen. I've talked about this before. I have two sons that are veterans. My youngest son, Adrian, he is currently the chair of the Veterans Advisory Board for the city of Harlingen. Myself, I have the roots. I'm grassroots. Since you asked me about my campaign, I'm completely grassroots from here. And so I grew up here the rest of my years in Harlingen. So I've lived in Harlingen for more than 40 years. So having said that, I was a high school dropout, Frankie. I got my GED. I had my first son before the age of 17. I have two sons. I have a son who lives in Houston who's a welder. And both of my sons are veterans, by the way. But, I learned life as it came to me. And so by the time I was 19 years old, I had already graduated from the registered nurse program here at the University of Texas in Edinburgh. So I'm proud to say that, even though we have life trials, you can still conquer and you can still triumph. And I went on, I kept going to school, and I've graduated a few more times. I'm also a graduate from Texas State Technical College. I actually became a medical transcriptionist before I became a registered nurse. So I attended TSTC at the age of 16. So needless to say, education is very important for me. And so empowering people and not advocating for the handout, but working for what you want, it can be done. I mean, this is America first. We live in the land of opportunity. And so, I have worked hand in hand because I just don't talk about it, but I have advocated for years to empower people to grow and become an educated person. And, a lot of people think that education means going to school, going to that amount, a degree of level, but, just becoming informed and getting involved, you are an educated person. And so I remind people that, just finding out what's going on, for example, in your local school district, attend your school board meetings. And I'm going to let everybody know, those of you who don't know who I am, I ran for school board here at our local school district in 2023 and in 2025. And so my journey to run for school board was very interesting, Frankie. I retired after 35 years of nursing. And by the way, I was a psychiatric nurse. So my specialty was in behavioral health. And I was also a utilization manager. And for those of you who don't know what that means, is basically overseeing all the expenditures that patients endure. So I used to represent the state and help keep the monies for the taxpayers. I had patients sometimes that were giving to me, assigned to me, and I had to go and research why they had spent $30 million. And by the way, a lot of those patients were in Brownsville, Texas. I worked for a nationwide company. So a lot of my role was dealing with how we're spending millions of dollars. And so, when I finished with my career and I took a break, I started becoming more involved because I have 10 grandchildren also and a great granddaughter. And kids or children are a sentiment to me. My grandchildren attended the local school district. So that made me become interested into what was going on in the schools. So in that journey, myself and a group of friends, and I'm very thankful for their advocacy, who stood by me. Like, for example, Dr. Israel Aguilar, who also ran for school board, Noemi Cisneros. And you've heard me talk about her, Mrs. Irene Flores. There was a small group of parents, Ernesto Cisneros as well, that we got together and we found that our local school district only had 5 officers for almost 40 schools. So after the Uvalde event, we started conducting these town hall meetings and trying to get the public aware, making them aware of what was going on in our schools, because it was also very interesting, Frankie, that when we had our town hall meetings, we would invite the parents, and I met a lot of mothers, and they would let us know how their children committed suicide, for example. And you don't hear about this on media. Because what happens in the school district level is whenever a family or a mother or anybody files a lawsuit against the school district, it becomes a federal case. And what happens with that is that before it even goes to court, guess who's the ones who review the cases? Our county judges. Our county judges review it and they throw it out of court. And what a lot of people don't understand is there's a due process. And they could be throwing it out because maybe a parent skipped a step in following it through. And this is where my advocacy has come in. Not only did we advocate to bring the school safety initiatives to Harlingen, because currently we continue with an MOU. And what an MOU stands for is a memorandum of understanding. It's not a legal binding contract, but I can tell you that for Harlingen, being one of the only school districts that does not have its own police department, we have an MOU in place. So our MOU, what that entails is the school district pays almost $1 million to the city for the 5 officers. The majority of that funding is paid toward administrative fees. But my point here is that it was it was very hard just to deal with the fact that we didn't have the armed officers. Because I did all this research, me and my friends, Frankie. I would go to the schools. I went to school board meetings. I met with the superintendents. I interviewed staff. I interviewed parents. I mean, this was like a full blown research, and it blew out of the water. So not only dealing with that, but also knowing what's going on internally. Having an armed officer outside is one thing, but also thinking of what's going on with our kids when it comes in regards to not only the suicide. I mean, we're losing a lot of kids, but indoctrination. We have a lot of that in our schools. If you look at our school boards, the majority of them are Democrats. So I made a decision to run as a conservative. And, I learned a lot about campaigning, and I learned a lot about how we don't have the conservatives involved enough. We don't have parents who show up to the school board meetings. I would go and sit there till 10 o'clock at night, and I'd look to my left and I'd look to my right, and not a parent, not a conservative, not a Republican sitting there alongside with me. But my message was very clear to the school board. It was like, hey, we need to wake up. We just had Uvalde happen. Do we want that? It's not a question of if something like that is going to happen. The question here is when. So we need to wake up. And I am running for Cameron County GOP. I'm going to go back to that, is because as a candidate, as a mother, as a grandmother, and as a taxpayer, I firsthand got to witness everything that I'm talking about right here. And in that intel of conducting the town halls, which, by the way, is how I met Mrs. Flores. When we had our very first town hall, we invited Congress. I was responsible for making sure that I invited all the stakeholders. So I had the opportunity to meet with many judges, constables, sheriff's department, Texas Department of Public Safety. I went around and I wanted to get them involved, because if anybody has followed the Uvalde event, it was a failure. They didn't have a plan. Everybody knows that. I mean, all they needed to do was to lynch the mayor from Uvalde. I mean, it got to that point, but look and study it. I went to Uvalde. I went to go visit the school. It was horrific. It was tragic. But I also know that, when they were calling the other departments, they really didn't have a plan. And so for me, I wanted to reach out to everybody around us, even if it was San Benito. I went to their school board administration. I went to Rio Hondo. I went to La Feria, because in an event of an emergency, I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page. So it took a lot of work to do all of that, Frankie. It took me months. I wrote to state representatives. I spoke to the Speaker of the House. I talked to Mr. Abbott. As a matter of fact, that's how I met Janie Lopez. She was a school board member, and I invited her, and she attended some of our town halls. I think it was like a couple of them. And the reason I wanted input from other school board members was because I wanted them to share what measures were they using. How was that effective? Is it not effective? So that intel, it was a lot of work, but you know what? It came from the heart. It came from my heart. And we've been doing this advocacy. When I say we, I don't want to take the full credit of doing that. I did do a lot of that, but it was also because of my friends, us coming together, and we knew that the children needed to be safeguarded. And so,
how will you use that experience? Because you started with saying that you wanted to unify the party.
correct.
How will you use that, your experience, grassroots movements of bringing to light of the Uvalde incident? I believe also you were very vocal on the books, the pornography in books.
Yes.
That was
Yes.
also an issue. How are you going to use your experiences there to unite a party that you say, needs new leadership?
Great question. So, because of the fact that I learned a lot about the community, how stakeholders are conducting their business in reference to how are we following the laws, the bylaws, and so forth. I also learned a lot about the challenges that the simple fact of being a Republican or a conservative and the simple fact of being a candidate. Those challenges are very, very interesting because you can hear a lot of people say, well, I know campaigning because I helped campaign or I helped fund a campaign. No, 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 no. Being a candidate is very different. And knowing the challenges, knowing what you need to do is what I want to bring to the table. I want to help our candidates. And I've said this before. Local elections are very important, Frankie. I went live the other day and I informed everyone that right now we have school board elections, but it's not just school board. So I also have seen, and I'm going to jump into this, not that I'm jumping around, but just follow me. Right now, the hot topic is the data centers, correct? As a matter of fact, I believe the Republican women is going to have Frank, is it Morales, I believe? He's going to be a guest speaker at their meeting. No. Frank Morales is a commissioner, but I apologize. I know that they're going to have a guest speaker who's been very vocal about the data centers here in Harlingen. But how do you get to actually enact if you are against it, if you don't go to city meetings? How are we supporting the commissioners who are running for the city? How do we support someone who's running for mayoral positions? I can tell you here for this past year, Frankie, I attended the Northern Cameron County Republican Club meetings. I never heard an announcement of, okay, we have funding to help if you're interested in this. Right now, our current local governance is primarily Democrat. What am I going to bring to the table again? Well, we need to flip those seats. We need to help our candidates. Why are we going to sabotage them? We need to be empowering them. You're interested in the data centers? Go to the meetings, run for commissioner, run for mayor. I'm here as your next GOP chair. I am here to support you. I was on the Community Development Advisory Board for the city of Harlingen also, by the way. And that is an appointed position. City boards are appointed positions. You get appointed by the commissioners. They have their discrepancy as to who they're going to appoint. When I was on the Community Development Board, Advisory Board, it was also, again, very interesting that I stood out like a sore thumb. The majority of them are Democrat, part of the establishment, what have you. But I spoke up, for the taxpayers. Okay, how are we spending? I was a voice, and I want to empower people to do that too. I think that the Republican Party, and as a whole here, we need to become more involved. And so, not only am I going to bring my experience as a former candidate, but I was also on a city board as well. I'm the president of the Neighborhood Watch in District 1, and I actually made them distinguishable. We have other groups here in Harlingen, but I made them distinguishable to hold the city commissioners accountable. So we have 5 districts in Harlingen. I am the president in District 1. My friends have District 2 and so on. But we get together and we work with law enforcement. I mean, I'm very pro law enforcement. I support the blue. And how? Well, I go and I meet with them. Chief Aguiar here, the Harlingen chief that we have, I mean, he's very responsive. But we need to encourage also our party to go to these meetings. And because I've gone to, for example, they have, and let's talk about this. So the Harlingen Police Department and every police department, they have their association, and they're the ones who are able to endorse candidates. So will you please answer, or can you please tell me, why is it that the majority of the endorsements that our police associations are doing are for only Democrats? That's something else that I would like to address, because we are pro enforcement. So why is it? And we know that unions are Democrat, but we need to roll up our sleeves and help them understand that we also are taxpayers, that we also advocate for them.
You're making an interesting point, because you're saying that you want to start at the local level. You're saying, as a Republican chair, you will not only focus on Congress, on the judge position, but also city elections, school boards, because you want to flip those from blue to red. Is that my understanding?
Yes. And it's also having the knowledge, how and where you're going to go. Who do you go contact? How do you go and approach these officials? Just as simple as getting an endorsement. Because you're asking me as a candidate, how am I going to help? How am I going to grow this party? Is empowering these candidates. How are we funding them? I mean, Frankie, I'm going to give you credit for this. When I ran for school board, I did not learn about how the Republican Party had provided funding to the two Democrats in Brownsville if it wouldn't have been for your podcast. How are we being welcoming to the candidates? How are we including them? How are we helping them? So these are some of the things that I want to change. I want to do for our party because I believe in it. I mean, America first, and how are we going to grow this? So those are very important factors to consider. So not only have I campaigned for myself, but I have campaigned for other Republicans. I mean, I think I had sent you a picture of my push card, Frankie, but if you look at my push card, and I only had them put some of the pictures around my push card, and they're all pictures directed toward the advocacy for the Republican candidates. Mm. Vicky's Closet, I'm part of that, and I want to really recognize Irene Flores and the Flores family, that, they've just been a great community service here in Harlingen and for other cities. But, advocacy is very important. And I'm going to give you an example. So every year and all year round, we have giveaway events. I think I had invited you to our Christmas toy giveaway event, for example. We do this all year, not just because it's Christmas, but we give back to the community out of our hearts. We have provided clothing to the children. We provide clothing to anyone who needs it, who's in need. And so, this is just how we get out in the community and how we're able to help promote the Republican Party. In our Easter basket giveaway, we had, I think it was like last year, we gave out almost 1,000 Easter baskets. And we pay for all of that out of our pockets, Frankie. We're not out putting boxes and asking people. No, I mean, people have donated to us and out of their heart, but we primarily carry the load because we care and we want to give back. And so we promote the Republicans as well because we invite them to our events. I tell them, hey, come on over. I'm going to have an Easter basket giveaway. Come put up your table. Come put up your signs. Introduce yourself to as many people as you can. Because I can tell you, like that Easter basket we had more than 2,000 people. So I just want to make that connection, and I want to get those candidates recognized and for people to get to know them. And not only that, but we need to get rid of that stereotype about the Republicans that, we're not helpful and things like that. That's just pure stereotype. And we all know that's not true. That's very important. But having just even events like that and getting them promoted. At our events, we've had Adam Hinojosa, I've had Jesus Rami Martinez, Jerry Santos, Mayra Flores, Kenneth Stoller, who ran for commissioner. So, a lot of these, we invite them to our events. And that's just a way for us to do that. And I will continue to do that. And I promise to help our candidates. I want to be fair to everybody. And I'm going to go back to, I thank you once again, Frankie. If you would not have shed light on the funding that was provided to the two Democrats in Brownsville, I would have never known. And I sure hope that is not happening to other candidates. So that's what I'm saying, Frankie.
How would you, if Lorraine De Leon is elected to be the GOP chairwoman, how will you define your success in your role? You mentioned about empowering candidates. What is something that you will continue, change, or end possibly with your leadership?
Well, I want to also be able to reach everyone. What I mean by that is, our population is predominantly Hispanic. These Hispanics are conservatives, and we need to solidify them. I've talked about this before, a Hispanic outreach team. I immediately want to implement a team like this so that we can get out there and talk to these areas that people have not gone to. For example, like Cameron Park in Brownsville. Does your GOP have the set skills to be able to relate to the people here?
Good point.
I know I do. I'm from here. I speak Spanish. I communicate very well. I'm helpful to others. And more importantly, I know firsthand what we need to do because I've been through it myself. So I want to be recognized for the welcoming part of the party. We need to work on being welcoming also.
Fundraising. Fundraising is a big initiative done by the chairperson. What's your philosophy in regards to fundraising for the county party? How would you expand the donors? How would you look for contributions?
Well, I do like to say that currently I am the chair for the fundraising committee for CASA. I'm a court-appointed special advocate, and I oversee Cameron and Willacy County. Frankie, I know that fundraising is very important, and I can sit here and tell you, well, I've raised this much and that much, and it is important, and I have raised that amount of money that's been out there and even a lot more, because not only have I the Republican Party by doing all these events to promote the candidates, but I've taken it out of the Republican Party. And I know you've said this. You want to support the person that gives, right? We want the person who is there to help others. And fundraising is very important, and it's great. Well, I can do that. I've done it many, many times. As a matter of fact, part of my intel is to bring sponsors. We're the leaders. We're Vicky's Closet, House of Hope and Victory. We're the leading point. But for me to make them publicly known so people can get to know who we are, I'm the one who goes out and does all the fundraising for them. If we need to do something, we do that. Last year, with CASA, we had a Royal Ball. And I was the chair for the fundraising committee. We had it right here at the Harlingen Convention Center. So these are things that I have experienced in. I brought up the fact that I was a utilization manager. I could sit down and write a whole 2, 3, 5 pages, a resume of my work, history, but it's the people that are going to endorse me based on my acts. What has Lorraine done for everyone? Fundraising, again, is very important. But what good is it, Frankie, if we're contributing money to the Democrats? GOP money.
Good point. Good point. Speaking of fundraisers, yesterday the Cameron County GOP party held a meet and greet. Special speaker Laura Trump. My understanding, you attended, Miss Lorraine de Leon.
Yes.
If you could give the public, how was the event? How was the turnout from your perspective?
I think it was a great turnout. I think they did a good job, but I'm going to circle back to a couple of things here. So I spoke to several of the candidates and I got some great feedback. And so I'm thankful to them for giving me that opportunity, to do that, right? Because it appeared that everybody came together. However, I will say this, that in speaking to, for example, Miss Eric Flores, I got to speak to him. And, him and I were talking about, our some of the things like our platforms and so on. So I was taken that, and I know Eric is fairly new to in the past few years. For example, I know he's new to the party because I went to the Lincoln Reagan dinner in Hidalgo, and I have been to the Trump trains with Gary Groves and so on. But he made a comment to me, but it's not about Eric Flores. I'm not going to blame him for this, and I'm going to explain that. But he made a comment to me basically that I was being paid by Mrs. Flores, Myra Flores. And again, I'm not going to blame him. What I'm trying to say here is this is the environment that our current leadership has created. I've said it. I want to be able to unite the party. I want to be the one to unite the party. So, staying neutral is one way of doing that. Because when you start taking sides and endorsing people and attacking people on Facebook, and then you see our current chairwoman liking those posts, only sharing certain people's meet and greets, giving preferences, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look.
One thing I personally did notice was that Bam Morales was one of the first individuals to throw his hat into the GOP primary for Congressional District 34. It is my understanding that the chairwoman did not even attend his announcement party. I have seen on the Democrat side, Jared Hakama, who seems to be, actively involved within every candidate, not their party per se, but if they do have an announcement party, I have seen Jared Hakama go to someone such as Denise Garza, who is running for the county clerk's position. We all know the relationship between Jared Hakama, the chair, the Democratic chair, and Sylvia Garza Perez, the incumbent. But yet he still went and took a picture with Ms. Denise Garza. Is that something that you will be doing, Lorraine? Will you be going to every announcement party? Will you make yourself available to each and every candidate? Will you be unbiased in this position, ma'am?
Yes, I will, because again, I know what that feels like. And so, and let's talk about, yes, I will be there and making sure, and that's another thing, Frankie, I want to form committees throughout the cities of Cameron County so they can report back to me. I want to know who is running, who's not running, what do they need, how can we help? And having said that, training for our precinct chairs is also very important. We need to work with them on developing their customer service skills, for example, training them on helping them understand unethical decision making. Because we have some, for example, we have some precinct chairs that are favoring and sharing posts on the Republican Women's page. And the response that, we've gotten is, well, it's not illegal to do that, or it's not in the bylaws, it's okay. But I'm talking about unethical decision making here. And also, we need to work on endorsements in the primaries. Again, that could also divide the party. Candidates have to be very careful with that because, as you know, if you go out and you publicly endorse one candidate, and we're talking about in the primaries, then the people who might have supported that candidate maybe support somebody else and they're not in agreement. And so there we go with a division. Okay. Now, let's talk about, again, why I'm running for the GOP county chair. My question here is, why didn't Deborah Bell announce that she wasn't going to run again? Maybe we would have had other candidates that would have been interested, and I would have supported them, Frankie. But it is to my understanding that Mr. Jim Birschbach had filed even days before the deadline when I went in to file. I sat around and I waited and I waited. And my good friends had been encouraging me to run, which that's another clarification I want to make. It was actually Mr. Jorge Ledesma. He is a former mayor of Primera who had been encouraging me to run. And we finalized it the night before. Irene Flores and Noemi had convinced me to run because they also had been seeing what I'm talking about right now. And that's just a question. I think that I really think that we need to be careful with that, because I would have supported that candidate. But we did not know that Mr. Birschbach had filed beforehand of that day of the deadline. I think it was on December the 8th. I walked in like 30 minutes before the deadline to file. So, transparency, we need to work on that. I think that our party will grow more if we are transparent and fair and welcoming. And I know we can do it. I know we can. I'm convinced that we can. It's how we lead our party. I'm ready to help our next candidate that is going to go beyond the primaries. I mean, I wish them all luck. They're all good candidates right now. We have the congressional, we have our county, we have Mr. Mauro Garza. He's the only Republican running. And also we have Frank Lozano, who is on the 107 district running against Mr. Noe Garza. He's a Republican. Hopefully we get the best man cross the line past the primaries, but this is who we need to support. I mean, the congressional seat has been Democrat for how long? And the way to win that seat is for us to unite. We need to come together. I mean, we have smart people in our party, and we all can bring something to the table, work together, and get across that line. And as I mentioned, I'm boots on the ground. I door knock, I hold up signs, I have a team of people. If any of the candidates, even right now, if they have questions for me, I have offered to meet with these candidates. I've offered to meet with Mr. Eric Flores. I want to know what we could do together to help us get past that finish line. And Frankie, once again, I want to thank you for bringing all this out in the open, because I think that we would not know what is really going on behind the closed doors if you would not have done your job, Frankie.
Miss Lorraine de Leon, take us home, ma'am. Why should the those individuals voting in the Republican ticket in less than 2 weeks, why should they vote for Lorraine de Leon to be the next Republican chairwoman?
Well, I decided that I wanted to do this, and I know that God is on my side on doing this, and we need to unite everyone. And I bring that to the table, as I mentioned, Frankie. There's a lot we can go on most of the day, but it's really important that we keep helping each other. We need to come together and stop all of this division. And I am the one to do that. And if everyone just notices on Facebook or any social media, I have not bashed anybody. I have not said any of that. So, we need to set the example. I want to be a mentor for our candidates. Want to coach them. I want to growing the party too. I've talked about the precinct chairs. How are we recruiting them? How do we mobilize? How do we mobilize the people? So, all of those things are very important for us to take into consideration. And I'm really asking for everyone's support. I'm humbly asking for everyone to help me get on that chair. I want to be your next Cameron County GOP chair. Perhaps I'll even be the first Spanish-speaking GOP chair. So, any other questions, Frankie?
Election starts, early voting starts less than 2 weeks, February 17th, with election day, March the 3rd. Lorraine de Leon for Cameron County GOP chair. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel titled Frankie Levo TV. Best believe we'll come on Monday through Friday religiously. Lorraine, thank you so much for your time and your attention, ma'am. Hope to see you soon.
Well, Frankie, can you just, I failed to mention something. Can I have a couple of minutes, please? Just to give a message to everyone. Thank you, Frankie. But we also need to work on election integrity. And I've talked about that. That is so important. I believe that a lot of our elections have been lost due to that. Like myself, my election was lost to mail-in ballots. And if we're going to cross the congressional line and win that seat, we need someone to be rolling up their sleeves and working with the elections department. And I'm sure you've heard, I went live. I spoke to Mr. Garza, the elections administrator. And I've met with him before. I've campaigned twice, but I've met with him recently. And to my surprise, 31 Republican locations and 56 Democrat locations. How are we oppressing the voter? So, something for everyone to think about. Who's out there? Who's the boots on the ground? Who's the grassroots? So, thank you. And once again, I'm asking for everyone's humble support. Please message me, inbox me if y'all have any questions. I'm available. And thank you, Frankie, for having me on your show.
You're more than welcome. Thank you so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of early voting. Elections start February 17th with election day, March the 3rd. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. Have a great Wednesday. Peace.